It is 1:30, Universal Time. I'm Jim Tedder in Washington. The Israeli military says its warplanes have bombed a building in southern Beirut where top Hezbollah leaders were thought to be hiding. Hezbollah says none of its leaders died in the attack. The militant group says the Israeli bombs hit an Islamic holy place that was being built, not a hiding place. Earlier Wednesday, the Prime Minister of Lebanon called for an end to the conflict. He said the attacks in the past 8 days have killed more than 300 people in Lebanon. Prime Minister Fouad Siniora said 1,000 others have been injured. Israeli air attacks on Lebanon on Wednesday killed at least 61 civilians. The Israeli military said 2 of its soldiers died in clashes with Hezbollah militants in southern Lebanon. A ship carrying more than 1,000 Americans has arrived in Cyprus. The passengers fled from the Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon. United States officials say they plan to take several thousand more Americans to Cyprus in the coming days. About 25,000 Americans have been living in Lebanon. Several European ships are traveling to Lebanon to take more people away. India also has sent 4 ships to pick up its citizens. Many people from Arab countries have crossed by land from Lebanon into Syria on the way to their countries. Thousands of Lebanese are also going to Syria to escape the fighting. French President Jacques Chirac has proposed what he calls a humanitarian truce in Lebanon. The goal is to let foreigners and Lebanese civilians flee Israeli attacks. Mr. Chirac also proposed the creation of humanitarian protected areas in Lebanon. He said people would be able to flee through these areas, and international aid could reach Lebanese civilians. In Geneva Wednesday, the International Committee of the Red Cross said it is expanding its work in Lebanon to help stop a humanitarian crisis. And the United Nations Human Rights Chief, Louise Arbour, said civilian deaths in attacks in Lebanon, Israel, and the Palestinian territories could be war crimes. Israeli troops have killed at least 14 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Palestinian officials say at least 10 people were killed in Israeli ground and air attacks on a refugee camp in Gaza. The officials say about half of those killed were civilians. Medical officials say at least 60 Palestinians were wounded in the Israeli raid on Gaza Wednesday. The Israeli army says 5 of its soldiers were wounded. Israel has been searching for a soldier captured near Gaza by Palestinian militants in June. In the West Bank on Wednesday, Israeli troops raided a Palestinian security force base in Nablus. 3 Palestinian gunmen were killed. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. The 2 top American officials in Iraq have called on Iraqi leaders to seek unity and help end the violence in the country. The United States ambassador to Iraq, Zalmay Khalilzad, and the United States commander of the coalition in Iraq, General George Casey, made a joint statement on Wednesday. They condemn the terrorists seeking to use Iraq's ethnic divisions for their own aims. In other news, at least 20 employees of a Sunni Arab religious group have been kidnapped north of Baghdad. The group, Sunni Endowment, looks after Muslim holy places. Also Wednesday, at least 25 people were killed in several attacks across Iraq. President Bush has signed the first veto of his presidency. He has blocked a bill that would have increased government payment for research on special cells of human embryos. The embryos used are left over from fertility treatments. Mr. Bush said such research is morally wrong. Later Wednesday, the House of Representatives held a vote to try to block the president's veto. But the lawmakers did not get a two-thirds majority against the veto that is required to block it. Supporters of this research say it could aid in the treatment of Parkinson's disease, diabetes, and injuries of the spine. But opponents say research on human embryos kills possible human life. Police in Jamaica have returned to work after a strike to protest suspended pay increases. The leader of the police union said more than 25% of Jamaica's 8,000 police officers took part in the strike. He said they returned to work after the Minister of Finance and Planning agreed to discuss pay issues with union officials. A meeting is set for July 25th. A United Nations report is calling for urgent intervention to reduce poverty in the southern Niger Delta region of Nigeria. The United Nations Development Program presented a report on Tuesday that says the area deserves a greater share of its oil wealth. UN official Alfred Fawundu says poor citizens see very little of the money from oil profits. Nigeria's oil-producing states receive about 13% of the country's oil profits. Militants from those areas are demanding at least half of the profits. Mr. Fawundu suggested that a more equal share would guarantee long-term peace. The Ugandan government has rejected a demand for a ceasefire by the rebel Lord's Resistance Army. Rebel leaders proposed the peace agreement on Tuesday. The two sides are holding peace talks in Juba, southern Sudan. Ugandan government negotiators say the rebels have used earlier ceasefires to gain more members and more weapons. Tens of thousands of people have been killed during the 20-year conflict in northern Uganda. 2 million other people have been left without homes. And now, briefly, here again is the major news of the hour. The Israeli military says its warplanes have bombed a building in southern Beirut where top Hezbollah leaders were thought to be hiding. Israeli troops have killed at least 14 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And the two top American officials in Iraq have called on Iraqi leaders to seek unity and help end the violence in the country. And that's the news in VOA Special English. This is Jim Tedder reporting.